everyone, welcome to another Classic Movie Monday, and today I thought it would be interesting to dive into something that is animation related again today for this Classic Movie Monday, and today I'm going to be briefly discussing, as you can tell by the thumbnail as well as the title, Dumbo. Dumbo I find to be one of the more unique and well done Disney films. And the interesting thing too is that this is the first Disney film that we see that's not based on anything. It doesn't have an original source material, so this is purely out of Disney's sort of creation. I think for what it's worth, it does I think, overall fantastic job in showcasing what we would expect to come out of Disney, and while at the same time bringing in something sort of unique to the table. And I think it is widely remembered for that reason. So I'm kind of going to go over with you what the film is about in case nobody has ever seen this film, and also kind of address the reasonings as to why I feel this is a classic among Disney's standards. Now, what I think makes Dumbo stand out in particular is unlike, again, the fact that it's not based upon an original source material, it also has a different tone as far as animation is concerned. When you look at Pinocchio and how also Snow White were drawn, there is a certain amount of sort of sophistication and there's sort of a European-like approach as far as the animation. It's almost like Disney wanted to immerse the sort of cultural background that each story sort of took place, and in doing so kind of create something that is very artistically oriented in that sense. However, since Dumbo takes place largely in part at a circus, it only makes sense that the animation is completely different. And as far as the way the animation approaches itself, I think it's great, because not only was this a huge, shift as far as animation is concerned on Disney's part, but they also made a transition as far as storytelling, and in doing so, they actually produced something that I think is rather unique, and therefore deserves this classic category. Now, in case you do not know, the short synopsis as far as what Dumbo is about, basically it follows a little elephant named Dumbo who can't talk throughout the entire film. Like, you will not hear him say any words. But despite his inability to speak, there's a lot of expressions that do come out of him, and you do sort of feel the emotional states that he's in as the film sort of progresses. And basically, big shock, he has big ears. You would think that all elephants would have big ears, but apparently his are extra big. And in doing so, there is these, I guess you could call, sassy, gossipy elephant women or females that basically kind of treat him as an outcast and treat his mother sort of rudely as well. So they pretty much isolate Dumbo as far as circus is concerned. And there's also kids at the circus who kind of poke fun at him too. So he is an outsider. And in doing so, I think Disney did a good job, because not only is Dumbo kind of on a different level than as far as treatment is concerned compared to the previous Disney films that came before, but I think also the fact that he's sort of the observer, I think, gives the film a nice touch, because again, he doesn't speak, but we see a lot of things through his perspective, and we do kind of feel like we're going on this sort of crazy journey with him. And I think that really works well, especially when you have a main character who can't talk. Um, and again, he is very expressive. He is one of those innocent, sweet characters that you want to ultimately root for. So it's kind of like what you would expect out of Disney. Now, there might be some people who might say that the kind of bullying, being different sort of attitude is something that we've seen among Disney time and time again, and I'd say yes, that is true. Um, but unlike all of those other films that did try to do a similar thing, um, there was at least an effort on Disney's part to try to make it through that perspective lens of Dumbo. Like we see it through his eyes at points. Whereas with the other Disney films that do focus on being different, you feel like you're not the actual character. Because again, usually those characters have a certain amount of identity associated with them, or they just kind of end up, they don't really. I don't think it's on the level of insult that these characters receive um, that amounts to the amount of insult that Dumbo receives, especially someone of such innocence too. And I think that's somewhat identifiable because I think usually the ones that are the nicest, unfortunately, sometimes end up being sort of squashed and, kind of abandoned at times. So it's nice to see how Disney did this film and try to encompass that scenario and do it in a way that I think is the most identifiable. I mean, if I look at all of the other Disney films that have attempted to try to do this sort of scenario, I don't feel like any comes in particularly close to how Dumbo encapsulates this idea. Um, and what I like also is how, again, unlike a lot of the other um, Disney films where, there's some change that the character goes through, and then somehow he's accepted by society or whatnot, um, or he's the hero and he saves the day, so to speak, so he earns the respect of the people who treated him badly. But here, Dumbo just stays Dumbo. I mean, he doesn't have to do anything to prove himself. He just ends up being himself, and in doing so, you see how he shines through his ability to fly. And there's really no necessary change or real struggle that he needs to go through. He just ends up just becoming more comfortable sort of in his skin at the end of the film. And a large part of that, I think, is due to the fact when he is able to um, embrace his ability to sort of fly. But again, there's no change. Like, this character doesn't develop into something new. There's not a change that sort of happens to the character, or he realizes he wants things for different reasons. He just stays true to himself. And I think that's really what really works with this film. Unlike a lot of the other Disney films that have tried to put in this kind of cliche formula of the person who is an outcast. Because usually it amounts to ultimately, uh, the person having to go through a change, or the person having to, become the hero, so to speak, in order to prove themselves. But here, Dumbo just stays Dumbo. And people suddenly realize how amazing he is for what he really is, which is an elephant with big ears. So it's very cute. But I also like the fact that at points it gets very trippy. It tries to push the envelope um, as far as what we would consider animation, because usually a lot of the times, at least Disney within this period was trying to stay very classical and very traditional, but this one sort of takes on its own shapes and forms. And I think that really works well, especially when it's something that we haven't seen from Disney at that point yet. And I don't think we've seen it on this level of Dumbo. I mean, maybe Winnie the Pooh did come close by being a little bit out there and trippy, but Dumbo, I think in particular, especially even if you look at the scenes where the clowns are in it, you feel like you're in this really bizarre and crazy world. And, Dumbo's just kind of just the average person trying to, you know, uh, trying to sort of, I guess, survive and uh, kind of fit into this world, even though, he ultimately doesn't really change anything about himself. So again, I think from an animation standpoint as well as from a storytelling standpoint, this works really well. Unlike like a lot of other Disney films who later on try to, make somebody go through something in order to prove their worthiness or of their might. I mean, really, all Dumbo ends up doing is flying. I mean, he doesn't change anything about himself. I mean, he was always able to fly. He just never knew it until he was able to, and until he realized, hey, I can fly. So it's not really a change. It's so much as him just embracing who he is. Unlike a lot of other Disney films that came later, like Quasimodo has to become the hero. Same with Mulan, she has to go out and fight in order to prove herself to be a hero, but Dumbo just stays Dumbo. And it's sweet and it's simple, but at the same time, there's a lot of interesting parts to it, especially as far as animation is concerned and as far as storytelling. And I like the idea that they give him a very encouraging sort of sidekick, you could say, in the form of a mouse. So yeah, I think overall from a Disney standpoint as well as a general animated film standpoint, I think this film works very well because it tries to create this wacky environment that I don't think has been close to what anything Disney has really done. And I also don't think they did the cliche elements as well as they are addressed within this film. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say about this film without really giving too much away. Yeah, I think that's really all I can say about it. And again, also this film doesn't focus in on music as much, although music is played. It's not really intended to be a musical, unlike the previous narratives that Disney has done in the past up until this point. And usually Disney films do focus on being musicals, but this one stands on itself as being good with its music, even though it's not the primary focus, I would say. But yeah, I believe that's really, though, all I can mention. But again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.